I'm Al Bowers from Massachusetts and served in the United States Air Force, mostly in the Strategic Air Command. Bombers, B-47s, B-58s. And then got a little schooling, got a master's degree in computer science from Penn State, and then was shipped off to Vietnam. Ended up in Air Force Special Operations in Vietnam. There's a small base way north of the DMZ, but west of Hanoi and those places, called Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. And that's where we operated out of. I was in OV-10s. It was an airplane that's primarily an observation aircraft with rockets under the wings. And it's used, the rockets carry Willie Pete, or white phosphorus for the non-military. Rockets where you fly over a target, you put the smoke on it so that the fast movers could come in and bomb it. At that time, I don't know, if you back up to World War II, we would just go in and we'd just bomb the whole city. In Japan, we firebombed the whole city, and it didn't make any difference if civilians got killed. But by the time Vietnam rolled around, we were trying to figure out a way to kill the bad guys and not kill as many of the innocent people. So we were working on something that eventually became the smart bombs, the laser-guided bombs. And that's why I was there, technical background, and I was in the back of that aircraft for that reason. But the airplane, because of that, had a great big bulge in the bottom with a lot of extra equipment and a lot of extra weight and a lot of extra drag. And we did a pass on one target, rolled the airplane over, blew the smoke, and when we pulled out at the bottom, the right engine was just standing still. So with one engine, she would not climb. We were west of that ridge of mountains that goes down between Vietnam and Laos. Couldn't get back home and punched out. So I broke my back and crushed T11 and T12, and now I'm paralyzed. But strangely enough, that got me into an organization called the Disabled American Veterans. And after our children got graduated from school, high school, and off to college, I got more active in the DAV and started traveling around to various chapters and got involved with the state organization. Met a lot of good people, veterans who want to help other veterans. And from that, I got different opportunities to serve and ended up as the national commander of the DAV way back when, 10, 15 years ago. I'm sure everybody knows and saw on the news was the big blow up, primarily in Phoenix, but that was not unique. It unfortunately turned out to be systemic, where the managers did not have the staff to provide the proper care for veterans, so they would just not put them into the system, put them off to the side so that when they got an opening, they could transfer it and start the clock. Well, that they would get paid or get bonuses based on getting the person in within 30 days. The rule now still is 30 days or 40 miles, but if they didn't get them within 30 days, then that would have affected the manager's bonuses, so they just plain lied. Interestingly enough, the problem was that they didn't have the staff to provide their case. Instead of yelling loudly that we need the staff to do the job, they just lied. General Shinseki got caught up in that and got fired, or asked to leave, and they brought in Bob McDonnell, who was the president or the chief executive officer of a major civilian, non-military complex. He is a graduate of what we in the Air Force affectionately call Hudson High, otherwise known as West Point. And he did go through a lot of the military schools. For those who watched the news, they saw him reach back to a veteran who said that he was in, I don't know if it was the Green Berets, but was in one of the Special Force outfits. And the secretary reached back and said, well, so was I, and da-da-da. And it turned out that he wasn't, because he had never been assigned to it. And checking back on that, he had gone through the proper training and was eligible, but had never been assigned to that unit. And Yeah, he overstretched by saying he was in it. He wasn't. But boy, the press climbed all over that one. He also said that he had fired, I think he said 16. He said some number that he had fired people who had lied, like the people in Phoenix. And it turned out that he hadn't fired that many people. Because in the government, you can't fire people. They've got the protections, and I'm not saying that the protections that they have are all bad, but the protections that the government employees have are really, really strong, and you really, really have to go through a bunch of hoops to get rid of them. So he hadn't fired as many as he had claimed. Some had been allowed to retire, some had been transferred, but it was interesting to watch the congressional reaction, because once he identified the fact that they lied because they couldn't provide the service and they wanted their bonuses, that they needed more money, more help, more personnel, Congress came up with the money. Congress came up with the money. Interesting enough, if you had taken that same amount of money that we at the veterans organizations had asked for at the budget time, if they had put it in at that time, the problem may not have come up. Probably would have been a lot less if it did come up. So here they finally jump through that hoop and say, okay, you can have the money that you need to do the job. So sometimes when people want to throw stones at the system, at Bob McDonnell and his employees, I say, be a little bit careful who you point that finger at, because those other three fingers are pointing back at you, Mr. Congressman or Congresswoman. That's just the way it is. They tend to forget their role in it sometimes, that they create the problem. Right after McDonnell got appointed Secretary of Veterans Affairs, he decided to go on a road trip. He was going to touch in as many of the VISNs as he could. For those who don't know, a VISN is a Veterans Integrated Service Network. Like all the states in New England are in VISN 1, and they batch them together. They've just organized that, so I don't remember how many they have now, but we're still VISN 1. And he was coming to Boston. Harvard Law School had invited him to speak as a distinguished speaker. The chief executive officer, the chief lawyer in the Disabled American Veterans Organization, called me and asked me if I could attend that gathering, because we participate in a program at Harvard Law School. We do a lot of service work for veterans. Anybody who wants to get through the VA system can come to the DAV. Our service officers will give you all the help you need at no charge. That's what we do. But there's certain cases that our paraprofessionals that's over our head. So we agree to various law firms around the country, and an outfit like Harvard Law, we agree with them that we'll do this, we'll do that, and you help us out. So I had the opportunity to go to Harvard Law and to be on the same podium with the new secretary, almost his first assignment. I think it was his first assignment. And of course, you sit in the green room for a while and you chat for a while, and someone said, Mr. Bowers, what was the toughest part about being the commander of the Disabled American Veterans? And I smiled at him and said, biting my lip, because I'm working with politicians. And he immediately knew what I was talking about. So I have a little bit of a soft spot for McDonnell. He's stepped into a few things and got into a few messes along the way, but he's a quick learner, and I think he's going to do okay. McDonnell has told his VISN directors, the people who are running the medical networks, that he wants the input of the troops, which hasn't been the case of all secretaries of Veterans Affairs. This is a little bit stronger pull. Troops we can complain sometimes a little aggressively, but I think it's a good thing that he is reaching out and having the VISN directors reach back to the troops and say, okay, what can we do better? Because if I walk in and I can't get my situation taken care of within 30 days or if I'm outside of 40 miles, the new criteria is you can get a chit to go outside to the civilians. But to do that, you have to pre-request it. You have to prove that you're outside of the 30 minutes, that I've tried to get into the VA, they can't take my case, or that I'm outside of 40 miles. But as we look at it, it sounds great, but the 40 miles was you and the clinic or the hospital in its air miles. Well, if somebody needs to go 60 miles to get to that clinic, that clinic's within 40 miles, you can't use that clinic, or you can't use that, you have the 40-mile criteria. And they said, okay, yeah, we understood that, we're gonna change it. And then we said, oh, by the way, even if I can get to that clinic, the condition I have, I'm a spinal cord injury patient, right? They don't have anybody that knows spinal cord injuries at that clinic. They only do primary care work, right? So I still am, if you give me the 60 miles to get to that VA clinic, they can't take care of me. I got to get to that VA hospital, which is a 2-hour drive. So there's some changes that needed to be worked out there. In talking with the local vision director, the gentleman's name is Dr. Mayo Smith. He understands that, and he was reaching back, and I attended a meeting with him recently. Probably 30 different veterans from veteran service organizations were there, and they went through a litany of things that needed to be fixed. A lot of them were personal, which aren't systemic, so I don't get too angered about those. But those that were systemic, he was taking seriously. So I think that the attitude may be a little more positive now than has been in the past. I also suggested to Dr. Mayo Smith, the VA probably needs to take credit for a few things because, well, let me give you an example. I don't know how many civilians have had a CAT scan, right? Almost all of the work that led up to the creation of the CAT scan was done, and the testing was done in the VA. We've got individuals in the VA that have received Nobel Prizes for medicine. The hospital industry has what's called LASKA awards, L-A-S-K-E-R-S, I think it is, LASKA and DeBakey awards. Folks in the medical business know those two names rather well. And there's a whole myriad of VA employees, medical employees, who have received those medical awards. I wear hardware braces. Almost every single piece of prosthetic equipment that's in existence today was either created by, funded by, grant given by the VA. And all of that goes back to everybody in the country. I go through TSA, and they say, well, just leave your crutches and walk through. And I say, no, because if I leave them, I'm going to fall over. You want to pick me up? The first implant was done at the VA. How many people have a heart implant pacemaker right now? That was engineered and created at I think it was in either the Buffalo, New York, or the Bronx, at that VA. And everybody gains from that. So I'm telling Dr. Mayo Smith and the folks who will listen at the VA, you need to let the public know that the tax dollars aren't going just to help veterans, that money inures to everybody. Those are just some of the avenues. There are problems. I try to be as positive as I can because I want them to be as positive as they can. And you can win a lot more with honey than you can with vinegar. So I tend to push the buttons that are more positive. And if there is an issue that is bugging me that is negative, go look the guy in the eye, eyeball to eyeball, one-on-one, and say, you need to fix that now. And we've been fairly successful doing that. If you would say in public format with 40 other veteran service organizations there, and you say, hey, jerk, you need to fix it, guess what? You're probably not going to get invited back, and you're going to lose that contact, and he's probably not going to fix it. So it's a lot better off to try to persuade rather than to push.